Having coworkers that you're friends with and you're really connected with is great. It can help you feel more engaged at work and maybe even help your career. But it can also hurt you if you say certain things to them that you shouldn't. In today's video, I'm going to give you 7 things that you should never say to a coworker, even if you're close. Let's go. Now, the first thing you should not say to your coworkers is confide in them that you dislike your job or you are looking for a new one. Now, if you've established great relationships with people and you're going out, maybe you hang out outside of work, you talk to each other, it can seem really comfortable just to share some things, some honest things about how maybe you're not happy or maybe you're seeking other employment, but it's never a good idea. One of the things you always want to take into consideration is that maybe they're not going to be as confidential as you'd like them to be. What if they let that slip to somebody else and it makes it to your boss? That could adversely impact your career. No matter how close you are to someone or how close you feel, if they are a coworker, you should never share that. Another thing that is really important to keep to yourself, not share with a coworker despite how close you feel, is if you dislike your boss or another leader at the company. It can be really easy in casual conversation to slip that, I don't really trust this person's judgment, or I don't really love the way they lead. But would you want them getting a hold of that information? Would you want that getting back to them? The answer is probably not. So even if you trust this person, even if you have what you consider to be a pretty good relationship, it's a good idea to not let that information slip, just to make sure 100% that it doesn't get to the leader or the manager that you're talking about. The next thing that you shouldn't share with a coworker, despite how close you are, is any kind of gossip. Look, it can be really easy to slip into the gossip trap and talking about other people. The last thing you want is that person saying, you know what I heard from this person? I heard this. The next thing you know, you get that reputation as someone who is less focused on work and advancement of the team and more focused on gossip. That's not good for your personal brand, and it's not good for your chances of improving your standing at work. Now, the next thing that you need to avoid telling anyone at work and those close to you is if you feel like your job is beneath you or you are too good for it. It can be really easy to get really good at your job and then all of a sudden talking about their tasks that you have to do that you don't feel you should have to do anymore. And maybe it's innocent enough, but you have to take into consideration the way they convey that message to somebody else. It might not come off as innocent. So this is one of those things where even if you don't mean it in a negative light, it can be perceived incredibly negatively, and you should not say that to another coworker because you want to make sure that it doesn't get to anybody else in the organization. Now, while it's quite common to maybe look at a rule or a policy and kind of skirt the line on that, and maybe you don't follow it 100%, if that is the case, it is one of those things you shouldn't share with a coworker. If you're choosing to maybe take a shortcut, not follow a policy, or do something as not intended, and in your mind, it is relatively innocent enough, one, you should probably consider the ramifications of making that decision, but what you definitely should not do is tell a coworker, right? Just because you think this person is close to you doesn't mean they are a person who is a stickler for the rules. And upon hearing that you're not following the orders of something or you're breaking a rule, they might feel so compelled to share that information with a higher up. If you are breaking a rule, if you are breaking a policy and you're not doing something you're supposed to, again, consider not doing that thing, but definitely do not tell a coworker. If you were getting calls and emails from headhunters all the time, and they're pursuing you, they're giving you opportunities to interview with new jobs, that's great, that's exciting, that right there is affirmation that you're a desirable candidate. But what you shouldn't do is share that with coworkers. One, it's probably pretty annoying to say, oh man, I got called by another headhunter today. I guess people think I'm amazing. You know, how does that come across? Probably pretty annoying. But also it doesn't benefit you. What if they let that slip to the hiring manager? Oh yeah, Ben told me that he's getting called by headhunters every single day. Well, it could lead to a really awkward conversation with your manager. It doesn't benefit you. Maybe you think it helps you establish leverage. Most of the time it doesn't. It's more likely to erode the confidence your manager has, your loyalty to the company. The last thing that you don't want to share with coworkers, no matter how close you are your future plans. If your future plans involve leaving and maybe going to another company, changing your function and going to another organization so you can do a different type of role, or even changing departments. It is one thing to have plans. It's one thing to prepare yourself to take those next steps. But if your next steps include leaving where you currently are, it's probably best to keep them to yourself instead of telling your coworker. Again, this is one of those things where you are always going to show a lot more discretion with your personal information than somebody else is. Somebody else might let it slip in passing because they're not as worried about the ramifications that it could have to your career as you are. Now this video is done, but I want you to watch this one. These are 5 things that you should never say at work because they can also hurt your career. It's a very similar topic, but these are overall things that could be said not just to coworkers, but in general that other people might overhear. If you are concerned about your career, want to make sure you're doing things the right way, I suggest you watch this video next. Go check it out.